Believe it or not, a profitable business can still go broke. And if you're running your business with your eye on your bank balance, it's like driving with one eye closed. My name is Joe DiChiara. I am a CPA over 40 years and lifelong entrepreneur. And I want to welcome you to episode number 29 of How to Win Big at Business. I created this podcast specifically for small business owners that can't guide through the numerous obstacles, let alone the IRS and government interference. Things like marketing, startup issues. Tax minimization is important. I'm a CPA and I do a lot of tax minimization. But the bottom line is taxes aren't always what puts people out of business. And I'm here to talk about those things that do put people out of business, those obstacles, those inevitable, oh my God moments. Why is this happening to me? It happens to all of us. So if I've gotten your attention, let's talk for a few minutes about why cash flow is one of the most important things in your business, how you can monitor it, and more, hopefully a lot more. If you enjoy what I'm talking about, please follow me, give us some love, give us some reviews, anything that'll help me spread the word to the millions and millions of US business owners that are out there unnecessarily struggling. So let me tell you what cash flow is not. It's not what's left over after you pay everyone. Cash flow should be a system that helps you run your business. I've been saying for decades, a business needs two things to be viable. Number one, sales. If you don't have a viable product or service that somebody's willing to pay for, there's no cash flow. You're not even in business. Number two is positive cash flow. That means positive cash flow after all of your expenses, including, yes, including your taxes. Because unfortunately, profitable businesses, successful people, despite what you may believe or have heard on the internet or whatever, successful people do pay taxes. In fact, successful people pay the bulk of the tax. And when I say taxes, I'm not just talking about income taxes because that's what politicians and clickbaiters like to focus on. They're going to go by, oh, the richest people in the world pay the lowest effective tax rate. Well, when you add to the equation the fact that business owners employ all the people that have jobs and add to that the payroll taxes, the compliance, the insurance costs. Successful people pay the most taxes, but I'm not here to debate that. But the fact is that your cash flow needs to be a system. Think of it as having different buckets. Instead of having one bucket where all the money goes into, and then you pick and choose what you're going to pay, what if you had a system that goes by percentages? In other words, you're going to put X amount away for every dollar that comes in. You're going to put X amount away for taxes. As hard as that might seem, okay? Face the fact that you're going to have to pay some taxes. Number two, owner drawer and salary. How much is going to be set aside for you? It can't be arbitrary. Let me see how much is left at the end of the month and then I'll decide how much to take. That's not a good cash flow system. Number three, operations. How much are you going to set aside for your regular, ordinary, and necessary business expense? And number four should be surplus. How much are you putting away for your cash reserve? So let's just go through a couple of the issues here. One of the biggest lies that self-employed people make is that I'll figure out the cash later. Just like when we start businesses, and I'm guilty of all the stuff that I accuse every business owner. Like I said, I'm an entrepreneur. The only thing different is that I also have a CPA license. So I've studied for decades everything I could about saving taxes legally, how to reduce my own taxes and my clients' taxes legally. And there's a lot of ways to do that. Okay. Most business owners, most small business owners that haven't learned these lessons run their business by looking at their bank account. They don't have any real accounting system. And let's take a step back because in order for you to have any cash flow system, you need something called an accounting system. One of my mentors, my coach, Larry Botton, always said, if you can't track it, you can't measure it. So you need to have a solid accounting system. And I'm not talking about QuickBooks. It's not an accounting system. QuickBooks is accounting software. And right now, there's a lot of other choices besides QuickBooks. 35 years ago, when QuickBooks first came on the scene, it was the 800-pound gorilla. There weren't that many choices. Today, you have numerous choices, probably hundreds of choices. In fact, I wasn't even happy with the choices, so I went out and hired a programmer to make my own accounting software. But the fact is that the system is not the software. The software is a tool that helps you track your accountant. So depending on how big, how small you are, if you're running a business on your kitchen table, use an Excel spreadsheet. That could be a start, but you need some system, checks and balances that include reconciliation. You need to have a budget. This is all part of the cash flow system. Now, another thing to understand is revenue is not cash flow. Revenue isn't even cash. Okay, depending on your accounting system. So let's talk a little bit about accounting systems, accounting methods. Okay, there's two methods, two main methods. There's the cash basis and then there's the accrual basis. Now, cash basis is basically anything that's going in and out of your bank account. A more accurate measurement is the accrual based system, where you're recording revenue when it's earned and expenses when they're incurred. Okay, so there's a timing difference. When at the end of the month, you bill clients depending on, and this goes to your cash flow system. Let's say you have a business where you invoice clients and then you have to wait. Well, you've earned the money. Once you send the invoice out, it's technically revenue, but it's still not cash in your bank. Okay. On the other side of the coin, you have bills that you might owe. Okay. They're legally owed. Utilities, your telephone, unless you're on automatic payment, which most people are now. But let's say you get a bill from your attorney, you pay it later. Those are expenses. It hasn't come out of your bank account yet, but they're still expenses. At the end of the day, you have to pay those expenses. So let's take a step back to my first statement, which was you could have a profitable business and still fail. And on the other hand, you could have an unprofitable business and stay afloat. So let me give you the second example because these are both personal clients that I had. I had a client that had a pretty large body shop. Okay, did a lot of business. People were always after him to buy their parts. So the biggest expense in the body shop business is, well, besides labor, is the parts. So this business was plenty of cash. My client was living large in real estate. Problem was, what I found out is he was 9 months behind on paying all of his suppliers. If we had taken that into account, if he stopped sucking money out of the business to buy his real estate, we would have been able to have the right picture, because the way he was operating out of his bank account wasn't proper. He did not have a proper accounting system. Not because I didn't try, because he didn't want that. He felt like he was rich. Unfortunately, he passed away, his business failed, and that was a sad story. But the fact was, he had plenty of cash, but he had a bad business because he refused to install a good accounting system. Had he had the good accounting system and he could show some constraint, he might still be in business. He might still be alive, but that's another story. On the other end of the spectrum, I had a successful contractor, large floor installer, commercial flooring, doing about $3.5 million a year, but no cash. He had tapped out his $150,000 line of credit. He had he had as much business as he could handle. The problem is he could take on big jobs, because here's the other side of the coin. He was profitable. He was paying taxes. I developed a really good accounting system for him. Everything was recorded. And what we found out was, number one, his clients weren't paying fast enough. He didn't have a good collections department. In fact, he had no collections department until I came on board. He gave them terms, and people, because nobody was reminding them to pay their bills, they went 60, 90, 120 invoices got lost, but he was making plenty of money. He just didn't have the cash. On the other end, he was paying all for all of his materials. He had no terms with his supplier. So what did we do? We went to his biggest suppliers. We asked them for terms. Instead of net 30, can we get net 60, net 90? And all of them said yes. We got better terms. It took over a year, but we got on top of the receivables. And we were able to get him a bigger line of credit, because now we could produce strong financial reports. And that was the story. That was the story. Don't think that your bank is your financial system. You have to be working closely with the CFO. Okay, that's what this is. Okay, cash flow is a function of what a CFO does. So I'm primarily a tax accountant my whole career. Things are changing now, things are shifting. A lot of it has to do with AI, because today I can do a lot of things with AI that my clients couldn't pay me for before. In other words, the amount of time that it takes to do cash flow analysis, budgets, things like that has shrunk. It's shrunk. So now we have been pivoting from focusing on tax compliance, tax strategy, to CFO level work. And it all comes down to cash flow. So that's my story, folks. I'm sticking with it. I hope you enjoyed the content. I hope you enjoyed the delivery. Follow us. I'm here every week. You should be monitoring your cash flow every week. If you ever want to reach out to me, just go to timewithjoe.com. I'd be glad to have a conversation with you about your business. And this podcast is all about how to win big at business. God bless. Over and out. Thank you.